Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As we say in the United States Senate, if you'll forgive me for a point of personal privilege, and I apologize if I am slightly emotional about this, but I owe so many of you. My wife Jill owes so many of you. My son Hunter and my daughter Ashley owe so many of you. My daughter-in-law Hallie, the whole Biden family and Bo's two children owe so many of you. Because the way you embraced our Bo, the way you honored him with your support, and the pride in which he took in being such an integral part of this state and all of you. I particularly want to thank the governor who was there, actually all the elected officials, all of you were there, but the governor who is basically family, along with his wife who is, one of the things you do when if you're really a smart public official, you hire people brighter than you. That's why I hired his wife. That's why, no, I'm serious, not a joke. One of the brightest people I've ever known in my life. But I look to you, David, and I look to Pete Schwarzkopf. The way you not only treated Bo when he was coming up, but the way you treated him when he was dying. And the way you continue to treat his memory. I think it's every father and mother's dream to raise a child. My dad used to have an expression. He'd say, you know you're a success as a parent when you turn and look at your child and realize they turned out better than you. Bo was better than me. So, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for remembering him. Thank you for the way you treated him. And I am not exaggerating, and you know this. He loved you. He loved what he did. And Governor, we've known each other for well over 30 years, and Tracy, even longer. And I think one of the greatest contributions I made to this state was you guys meeting in my office. I want to also recognize that one of my closest friends in the world, who was supposed to sit up at the table with me, but shine the limelight as he always does, one of the brightest guys I've ever known, Senator Ted Kaufman. Where the hell are you, Ted? There he is, Ted. And the last time I ran for United States Senate, you remember under the Delaware rules, I was nominated after it was too late to get off the ticket as vice president off the ticket. So I ran as vice president and senator on the same time. And I wasn't in Delaware at all. And Bert DiClemente, who ran the state for me, was the candidate. And I won by the biggest margin ever won by, with Bert being the candidate. But Bert, thank you very much for all you've done with me, and Bert's here as well. I want to thank my dear friends, all members of Congress. Tommy, you've been my friend and ally for a long, long time. We've never had a crossword. We've never failed to agree. We've never failed to be able to work out whatever needed to be done. And I'm so glad you're still there, Tommy. As well as Chris Coons. Chris holds the seat that I held. And Chris has done more in his first term than I did in 3 terms. And so, Chris, thank you. Thank you in making sure the Biden legacy seat looks like it's good. The fact is that, as you don't have to be told, Lisa Blunt Rochester is a star. She's a superstar. She's one of the best and the brightest new leaders in the United States House of Representatives. That's not hyperbole. The last two classes we elected and took over the House, this last class, have some of the most talented women and men, but mostly women, that I have ever seen in Congress. I campaigned in the 2018 cycle. I went into 23 states for 69 candidates, most of them women. All of them won, but it's a new breed, a new breed. 5 of them were graduated from Naval Academy or West Point or Coast Guard. Fighter pilots, women and men who have done extraordinary things, but most of all, who have great character like Lisa. And she has gotten a seat, which is shown the respect the leadership has for her, on the House Energy and Commerce Committee. That's really a big deal for the state of Delaware, a big deal for the state of Delaware. Lisa, we're lucky to have you. But excellence runs in her family. Ted Blunt, her dad, all-conference, all-tournament, Winston-Salem All-American at Winston-Salem State University. I found everybody from Tiny Archibald on who told me that, quote, you were better than they were. Would have been drafted as well, except for those flat feet of yours. So, Ted, you've been a friend a long time. And as they say in a lot of parts of this state, you've done good, fellow, with that young woman. Thank you for what you did. And to Eric, our state chair, and all the elected party officials and activists, thank you for all you've done. And thank you and congratulations tonight to our honorees. As you know, I have a special relationship with Sonny. Sonny not only helped me get elected, she'd also be the one to call up and say, what the hell did you just say? What are you doing? She was very proud of the fact that it almost cost me 2 elections that I had a 100% rating with the ACLU. No, I know, but he didn't make it any easier, Sonny. You were right, but it didn't make it any easier. And Gil, thank you for all the support you've given me as well. You know, you ought to talk to Sonny if you don't know her. Not a joke. Listen to her. Learn from her. And you know what it means to be a Democrat, to be a Delawarean, to be an American, to be someone devoted to something bigger than yourself. And to all my fellow Democrats, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, thank you for allowing me, a guy who doesn't hold any public office anymore, to come back home and be your keynote speaker tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Folks, I've been in every state, campaigned for people in every state. I've been in somewhere in excess of 80 nations. I think that's the number. Don't hold me to the exact number. And I always talk about Delaware. Tommy knows this because I spent a lot of time in Central America. And Tommy, you picked up the gauntlet, and you are making sure we do have the right policies. And I always talk about Delaware. And the thing I talk about Delaware is what's special about this state. Oh, there's a lot of reasons we're special, but I think the most special reason to focus on Delaware is our political culture. We have an expression. It's sometimes frayed, Chris, but we have an expression that's been able to be sustained. Our politics, we do it the Delaware way. No, but truth of the matter, compared to other states, as tough as things have gotten, it's still better than other places, the Delaware way. We don't demonize our opponents. We don't belittle them. We don't question their motive. We question their judgment, but not their motive. We don't treat the opposition as the enemy. We might even say a nice word every once in a while about a Republican when they do something good. Now, some people think we do this because we're a small state and we're going to run into that person on the other side of a debate again, or in a grocery store, or in church, or the Little League field, or at the beach. All true, but I think it's more than that. No, but I think it's more than that. Barack always used to kid me because I'd repeat 1,000 things to him. As Michelle writes in her book, she said Joe was like Barack's big brother. So I could be completely candid with him. And when he'd ask for advice, I tend to do what I've always done, is pass on the advice I got from my mother and father. And I'd say, oh, politics is personal. And it is personal. One of the reasons why things get on a little better here in Delaware and other places is we do know one another. As much as you disagree with the man or woman across from you on the merits of a political problem, you also know that they may have a son or daughter who is ill. You may know that someone's wife or husband is suffering from breast cancer or prostate cancer. You may know they have fallen on hard times. And it makes it awful hard to dislike them when you know somebody, when you know the struggles they're going through. It makes it hard to dislike them. It used to be that way, as Tommy will tell you, in the United States Senate and the House. We used to know one another. Democrats and Republicans had lunch together. We talked it over. We traveled together around the world. When a man says, sitting next to you as a Republican, as has occurred with me, cries that his wife is dying of breast cancer, it's awful hard to dislike that man, even though I disagree with him 100%. One of my closest friends in my entire career was John McCain. John went after me hammer and tong. I know. Everybody talks about our relationship, but we went after, he's the one who said Joe Biden should be taken off the ticket. Joe Biden should be, etc. It was tough, but we had the same value set. We never questioned one another's motive. It's hard to question a man or woman's motive when you know them personally, even though you fundamentally disagree with them. I used to say to John, you haven't seen a war you don't want to fight in. And he'd say, you haven't seen a problem you don't want to fix. And we have real serious arguments. But folks, we got to get to know one another again. You know, I think in Delaware it's because we understand that for this democracy to work, there's only one way to make it work, just the way our Constitution is written, including the state Constitution. You have to arrive at consensus, period. Without consensus, nothing can get done for the people. And that means you need to listen to the other guy, the other woman. Work with one another and respect one another, no matter how badly you disagree. That's why the most unique thing, and they know about it in Mumbai, India, they know about it in London, they know about it in Beijing, Returns Day. Think about the uniqueness of that in all of America, and probably in most all democracies in the world. It was a brilliant idea, conceived hundreds of years ago. The winner and loser, and it's hard when you lose to sit in that carriage and ride for an hour, as Nancy can tell you. Nancy didn't lose, but Nancy can tell you what it's like. But think what happens. It takes the venom out. The hatchet gets buried. And for 2 more years, there is some basic accommodation. Because once you question another man or woman's motive, you can never reach agreement. I can tell you you have a stupid idea about this, that, or the other, whether it's health care, whether it's roads, or whatever, and we can still compromise. But if I tell you you're in the pocket of, or you're not honest, or your motive is to try to undermine, you can never get to go. You can never get to a position where you can reach a consensus. We need a little more of the Delaware way. We've got to make it more the American way. And it's lost. Our politics has become so mean, so petty, so vicious, that we can't govern ourselves. In many cases, even talk to one another. And it can't go on like this, folks. I know I get criticized. I'm told I get criticized by the new left. I have the most progressive record of anybody running for the United, if anybody who would run. I didn't mean. Than anybody who would run. Because, folks, we have to bring this country back together again. And look, I believe we're at an inflection point. I really mean it. I believe we're at an inflection point. The election in 2020, without hyperbole, is going to be the most important election this country has undergone in over 100 years. Not a joke. There's so much at stake. Our core values are being shredded. Our standing on the world stage is at risk. I still travel the world. I still meet with heads of states all over the world. They're confused. They're concerned. They wonder where we are. Our democracy is under threat. The danger posed by this administration to this nation is not hypothetical or exaggerated. It's real. It's existential. And many of our Republican and independent friends know it as well as we do. Look at what happened in Charlottesville. I played a very big part in the civil rights movement in this state. On the East Side and being engaged in early desegregation efforts and the like. But I thought 5 years ago I'd never see again anything like. And I bet you thought the same, Ted. Ever see anything like what happened in one of the historic cities in America? We saw Klansmen, white supremacists, neo-Nazis slink out from their darkened rooms in digital hideaways. Their crazed faces, illuminated by torchlight, veins bulging, bearing the faces of racism, chanting the same anti-Semitic bile, that was heard across Europe in the 30s, word for word. And they were met by a courageous group of Americans. And a violent clash ensued. And a brave young woman named Heather Heyer lost her life. And then we heard the words from the President of the United States that stunned the world, not hyperbole, stunned the world and shocked the conscience of this nation. He said we were, and I quote, some very good people on both sides. Fine people on both sides. No, think about this. It's not about just booing. Think about what was said. Our children are listening. Our silence is complicity. With these words, the President of the United States assigned a moral equivalence between those spreading hate and those with the courage to stand against it. And in that moment, I knew that the threat to this nation was unlike any I had seen in my lifetime. On top of that, he's embracing autocrats all across the world, from Putin to Kim Jong-un, turning our backs on our most important and trusted allies. And now, the world's worst dictators are using his own words to justify their abuse of power. What do you hear coming out of the Philippines or out of North Korea? Fake news has become a phrase of choice for every despot terrorizing his people. The president is systematically tearing down the guardrails of our democracy, going after the very institutions our founder placed in the Constitution to serve as a check on presidential power. A free press, an independent judiciary, a co-equal legislative branch. Think of this. He maligned the Congress as much when it was all Republican as he did when it was Democrat. Because the more you weaken the power of these institutions, which are set up to prevent the abuse of power, prevent the accumulation of power, the more power rises to the presidency. Folks, we better wake up to what's happening right in front of our eyes. You ask me if If you asked me a few years ago, whether our American democracy could ever crumble, I would have laughed at you. Even though as a student of history I know that every democracy that's failed in the last 100 years, not one has failed because of a gunshot or a door being battered down. They failed because of a democratic election, and then whoever's elected began to take the guardrails down, tear down the legitimately elected official, tears down the constraints on their power. Folks, and I say this to Democrats as well as Republicans, we have to remember what makes this nation so special. As corny as it sounds, it's what we believe. We hold these truths self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Sounds corny, but that's who we are. And while we've never lived up to Jefferson's words, we've never wholesale walked away from them. We've never walked away from them. My dad used to have an expression, a lot of you knew my dad. He said, Joey, everyone's entitled to be treated with dignity and respect. Everyone. Every single person. My dad would never let us walk by anybody who was in trouble begging for money. And he'd say, Joey, you think they'd be doing that if they had a choice? The guy driving me down tonight, we had a little problem as we turned into Dover off the 4-lane because there was a young woman with a sign saying, please help me. So I asked him to stop. His horns blew so we could take out what I had in my pocket, and he did too, and give her the money. No, it's not about me. No. It's about who we are as Democrats. That's the essence. That's the essence. We don't expect our government to solve all our problems, as my dad would say, but we expect the government to at least understand our problems. I get criticized for saying this as well, but I'm an admirer of, because I think he's a brilliant writer, the conservative columnist David Brooks. He's written a lot about this, and I agree with David Brooks what he calls, there's an invisible fabric, he says, that holds the nation together. And it's being shredded. It's made up of the basic values that define us best. You know, one of the reasons why around the world, and I've been traveling the world for my entire adult life as a senator, why people think we're naive, because we use phrases in our diplomacy like honesty and decency. We talk about treating everyone with dignity and respect, giving everyone a fair shot, leaving nobody behind, and giving hate no safe harbor, demonizing no one, not the poor, the desperate, the immigrant, or the other, and leading by the power of our example, not just the example of our power. That's why we've been able to stand as a beacon to the world. Understanding that as Americans, we're part of something much bigger than us individually. That's who Americans are. That's who we are. But this president sneers at those values, literally. He thinks they make us weak. He thinks we're suckers. Well, he's dead wrong. It's these values that have made us so strong. He doesn't understand that you can't define an American by race, ethnicity, religion, or tribe as he tries to divide us into those categories. Think about this. If there was an essay question asked each of you to write, define an American for me. You can't do it like you can in almost every other country in the world. We can only be defined by our shared values that are emblazoned in the Constitution. People aren't going to be able to quote the Constitution. But those shared values, no matter where we come from, no matter how long we've been here, how soon we got here. Folks, unlike any other, this is not chauvinism. Unlike any other nation in the world, America is unique in one overwhelming way. America is an idea. It's an idea. From the outset, it was an idea that goes back to our founding. What keeps us pushing toward justice, toward a more perfect union. We're nowhere near there, but it keeps us pushing there. It's been for over 2 centuries, and it's still today our North Star, the idea of America. I've spent more time with Xi Jinping, President of China, than anybody, I'm told, any world leader, at least before I left office. And we were in Chengdu, each of us having an interpreter, having a private dinner, and he's asked me all these questions. And he looked at me and he said, "Can you define America for me?" Not a joke, literal. And I said, "Yes, I can do it in one word. One word. Promise. Promise." Think of any other country in the world compared to us. It's the promise of America. It's the notion in our DNA that given a shot, everybody deserves a shot. The promise that we can do anything that's within our capacity. Lisa, when your dad was being raised, he wasn't at all certain that his daughter could be a U.S. congressman or he could be the success he was. But it was the promise of America he never gave up on. Tommy, the same with you, man. What made it so that a guy with your background, which is good background, but normal middle class, could be a United States Senator and head up major committees? It's an idea that's stronger than any army, bigger than any ocean, more powerful than any dictator or tyrant. It gives hope to the most desperate people on earth. And if you travel the world, you know I'm not exaggerating one scintilla. It instills in every single person in this country the belief that no matter where they start in life, there's nothing they can't achieve if they work at it. That's who we are. There's no stratification in America except the racism that existed and still exists in many places. Here's something else the president doesn't understand. He doesn't understand who built this country. I know who built this country. You know who built this country. Because as I look at the room and see you all, I see the people who built this country. You, your parents, your not a joke. You built this nation. This country wasn't built by Wall Street bankers and CEOs and hedge fund managers. They're not bad guys, but they sure in hell didn't build this country. You built this country. Your parents built this country. Ordinary Americans built this country. The great middle class built this country. That's literally, not figuratively, the story of America. A story that ordinary people from neighborhoods you and I grew up in can do extraordinary things given half a chance. Look at all the incredible things that have been done. They've been done by ordinary Americans who believed, because it was stamped in their DNA, that if they tried, there wasn't a damn thing they couldn't do. That's how we built the greatest nation on this planet. Again, I know it sounds corny, but that's the God's truth, and we got to remember it. But Trump has turned his back on the very people he promised to help. Remember how he's going to help the middle class, the cops, the firefighters, construction workers, auto workers, farmers, teachers, nurses, home health care workers. So many folks in places like Delaware, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin have been whipsawed by a changing world economy and left behind by the draconian policies of this administration. Folks, there used to be a basic bargain in America. I know you're tired of hearing me say this. We've been saying it for the last 20 years. The basic bargain in America. A bargain that built the middle class. And it went like this. If the outfit or enterprise you're associated with succeeded, you got to share in the benefits. That used to be the deal. Not a joke. In corporate America, it used to be the deal as well. And if things went bad for the outfit you work with, everybody shared the loss, from the CEO to the secretary. That bargain's been broken. That bargain's been broken. And it's happened gradually but consistently. It's broken badly. We need a new corporate ethic in America, which I'll not take the time to go into now, but you're going to hear a hell of a lot more about it from me. Just look. Look at that tax cut last year. Look at that tax cut. $1.9 trillion. How quickly Republicans forget that the deficit makes a difference. I don't know how that happened, Tommy. $1.9 trillion. The vast majority of it went to the top, not only the top 1%, the top 1/10 of 1% of the taxpayers in America. With little or nothing, going to hard-working people struggling to put 3 squares on the table. Even worse, it added $1.9 trillion to the deficit that not a single economist will tell you can be sustained long term. And they know it can't be sustained. My dad had another expression. When someone tell you, Joe, this is what I value, he'd say, no, don't tell me what you value. Show me your budget and I will tell you what you value. Show me your budget and I will tell you what you value. Those of us who've known him for a while don't have to guess what Donald Trump and his supplicant Republican members of Congress these days, and there's a lot of good women and men there. They got to screw up some courage. They got to screw up some courage to start acting like they believe. But you want to know what they value? And I've been saying this for 2.5 years. Just take a look at their budget that they announced last week. You don't have to guess anymore. Here's what it contains, just a little bit of. They cut $2.7 billion from EPA, nearly cutting the budget by 1/3. At the very moment we're at an existential crisis, we don't begin to act on the environment and global warming. They cut $8.8 billion in education funding. $8.8 billion. At a time when we've all realized that 12 years is no longer enough to lead the world. 12 years of education. As Jill would say, and she's still teaching full time, any nation that out-educates us will out-compete us. They cut, Tommy knows this better, they cut $3.8 billion from energy. $12.4 billion cut in human services. Add to that another $25 billion cut in Social Security, and yet another attempt to repeal the Affordable Care Act that includes protections for pre-existing conditions. They cut Medicare by $845 billion. Not to sustain the universal health care plan we built, but to fill in the holes in the deficit because of their tax cut. They also call for, I mean, just as Jill would say, Google it. And they cut $1.5 trillion in Medicaid as we know it. Not expanding Medicaid through the Affordable Care Act like we did. That's presently covering an additional 12 million people in America, in the states that have expanded it. I could go on, but these cuts are driven by the same thing. They've made a basic value judgment. They'd rather reward the super wealthy and hope something trickles down than help anybody else, and that's why they have to pay for the tax cut. And they're coming after us, the people we care about. And I just don't mean people who are making 50 grand. I mean people making 150 grand. Raising 3 kids. We've got to close this monstrous deficit they created, they keep saying. That's the only reason we're doing it. We don't want to make these cuts. Folks, as I said, we're literally in a battle for the soul of America. And an overwhelming need to restore the backbone of America, the working class, the middle class. But as tough as things are right now, I'm optimistic. More optimistic than I've ever been in my political career. And it's not about me and whether I run or not, and I mean that sincerely. It's about the capacity to restore America and once again become that shining city on the hill. In last year's midterms, as I said, I traveled to 24 states, campaigned for, I said 63 candidates. And the last 6 days alone in 13 different towns. There was something different, fundamental and profound that I found that was going on. I'm a tactile politician. I always have been. That's what gets me in trouble as well. But I think I can feel and taste what's going on. Everywhere I went, no kidding, everywhere I went, there was an insatiable desire by Republicans as well as Democrats for women and men of high character in public office. Look at the polling data. Look at the polling data. People are making their decisions more on what they believe to be the character and authenticity of a candidate than a particular position they take on an issue. Voters understood that the very character of our country was on the ballot. And they stood up and they spoke. They spoke. And we won. You may remember I got criticized early on saying we'll win 40 seats. Thank God we won 41, but I never forget it. But it wasn't because I was picking a number out of there. I could feel it. You all would feel it. You're all good at this. You could feel it. Whether I was in Memphis, whether I was in Alabama, as pointed out by one of my African-American colleagues, I'm the only white boy that gets to go to Alabama as a Democrat campaign. Really. Whether I was up in Montana, where the president won by 40 point plurality, or in traditional Democratic areas. They all were looking for the same thing. I'll say it again. Despite our problems, I have to tell you, I'm more optimistic about the prospects of our nation today than I was when you elected me as a 29-year-old kid to the United States Senate. There is no reason why the 21st century will not be the American century. Just think about it. We have the wealthiest and most prosperous economy in the world and the history of the world, including China. We have the most powerful military in the history of the world. We continue with our values, if we lead with them, to be able to unite the world on common missions. We're virtually energy independent, something that seemed impossible a few years ago. We're the most innovative entrepreneurs in the world, the most agile venture capitalists, the most productive workers. Our workers are 3 times as productive as the workers in Asia. I hear these stories about how China's going to eat our lunch. Give me a break. I remember I was the guy that went up to Wharton School in the late 90s when it was Japan Incorporated. All the professors at Wharton and all these people talking about Japan is going to eat our lunch. And I made a speech saying that's not even remotely possible for a whole lot of reasons, including the value system. We have more great research universities than all the rest of the world combined, and every major life-changing and life-altering invention has come out of a research university, not out of a corporation. They monetize it. Folks, there's nothing to be able to stop us. No other nation in the world can match us. There's nothing beyond our capacity, and I mean that. There is nothing beyond our capacity. The only thing strong enough to tear America apart is America itself. And we've seen it start. And it's our obligation as Democrats and Americans to stop it. We must be clear. Everybody knows who he is. They got to be clear of who we are. Who we are. They've got to understand that we Democrats, we choose hope over fear. We choose unity over division. And we choose truth over lies. It matters. Folks, it's still our century. We have to remember, we got to stop walking around with our heads down like, woe is me, we're in such trouble. Damn it! There's no other country in the world that's come close to our capacity. None. It's time to get up. Get off our backs. Remember who the hell we are. This is the United States of America. There is nothing beyond our capacity. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Go get them, folks. Go get them. Thank you. Where am I going? I'm going this way.